Hey, it looks like we're live. I think we're live. Are we live? I don't know. I'm going to give this a second to make sure that we're live. Um, but I'm pretty sure we're live. Yeah, we're live. Okay, so I've got my thing set up there so I can see the chat. Robert James says you're live. Thank you, Robert. Much appreciated. So, we're doing a thing tonight. Tonight is the 10th anniversary of Same Name, Different Game. So we're going to watch I was originally thinking of doing the first series, the first season of Same Name, Different Game, which I think of as sort of the Wisconsin years, the Milwaukee years. And I did some quick back of the envelope math, and that would have been like a 4-hour live stream. Which I didn't think I had put out that much stuff. And then if I would have included like the first few episodes of Obscure Old Games, then that would have ballooned it up like even more. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna do the first year, because this is the 10th anniversary, so doing the first year's worth of videos, that feels right. So that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna start. There we go. We're going to start with the very first episode. Snarkcast says, happy 10th. Thank you. So, in the episode I'm working on now, you're going to hear me talk about the hand-me-down futon I got from my parents, and that is it right there. That's me grabbing games off of the hand-me-down futon from my parents, and all of this. Oh man, I had no lights. This is done with the lighting in the room, like it was what you can see reflected in the Reservoir Dogs poster. It was just one overhead light. The camera that this was shot on, I had a blemish on the side of my mouth that looked like a infection, cold sore of some kind, and I remember being really upset about that when I shot this. So yeah, that's me at the tender age of 28. And I at a time when I could fit all of my movies, DVDs, and all of my video games on one wall's worth of shelves, which is way not the case anymore. Snarkcast says, classic yellowed non-white balanced lighting. Been down that road myself. Yeah, the camera I had at the time, I probably could have white balanced it properly, but I just didn't. I mean, I didn't really know how with the DV camera that I was using. So here I'm using I think it's AE Flashfire or something. It's an overclocked remix of Life Force music, which at the time I was like, I'm gonna do that all the time. And there are a couple of videos where I use like guitar covers or remixes, but mostly I kind of decided that like I wanted to feature the music from the games when and wherever possible, so I stopped doing that. But Snarkcast says, what did you use back then? When my ex and I did our cooking show, we used a Kodak Z18 flip camera. So actually I still have this camera, but I can't reach it right now. I don't honestly remember off the top of my head what the model was, but it was a mini DV cam, and at the time I got it, which was 2005, I bought that camera. It was like a $3,000 camera. Like I used my college graduation money basically to buy a mini DV cam, which of course now you look at it and it's like that quality is so much worse than what I get now on a Canon Rebel T3i that cost me $300. That's still a nice camera, but the gap in quality between what was considered like a high level several $1,000 camera at this time and what now is considered like not even that stellar of a camera is such a wide gulf. And Robert James is learning as you go, how you figure things out. Yeah, I was an AV geek in high school, so I probably and I had already shot like an entire documentary, a short feature documentary, using this camera, but all of the footage in that was outdoors. It was about baseball, and you don't have to white balance in the same way. And eventually what I would start doing is I would just start always filming these segments during the day so I could use natural light and it wouldn't look as like gross and yellow. Smoke Monster says, good job, Joe. Your old footage looks better than several of the NASA webcams from their stream today. I saw you grousing about that on Twitter. Yeah, NASA, I feel like there's some people who disagree with their budget and therefore like only allot them. Although you never know, maybe that's the price of, of broadcasting a signal that far. Snarkast says, I used the same ZI-8 all the way up till MagFest 2019. But since then I started using my phone. I mean, that's the thing that's crazy, right? Using my smartphone now, I could get better quality video than what we're looking at, right? That's the thing that's really bananas. And of course, I'm mad at it, right? So the camera that I had, this mini DV cam, had an option on board to matte to widescreen because I thought it looked more cinematic, but now because now YouTube displays in widescreen, because now you can have high def videos, but at this time you couldn't, so videos were usually 4:3, so it was just letterboxed, but now it's letterboxed and pillarboxed. It's like watching the theatrical cuts of Star Wars on those crappy special edition DVDs that came out in like 2007 or whatever. And I hate it, and I wish I had open matte. I wish I should have shot all this stuff open matte, but there's like a laundry list of mistakes I made back then that I wouldn't make today, but part of it involves knowing the future. So, Snarkast says, last year I planned to do 4K, but when I saw the file size, nope, went back to 1080p 60. Yeah, I keep all of my game footage and all of my stuff that I do. I never get rid of the old game footage or anything, unless it's for like a quick and dirty, if I do like a Extra Life or something like that, hype video, I'll get rid of that video footage. But for any of the proper episodes, I never chuck any of this game footage. So I think 4K, I'll probably start doing it eventually, but it would fill up a hard drive so fast doing 4K at 60 FPS. So yeah, this is if you watch the most recent video, I just called out one of the mistakes I just made, which is talking about the aspect ratios of arcade monitors, which is not applicable to this game at all, because this game, the arcade version of Salamander and Life Force, is a 4:3 game. But the idea that I would use the term graphics whore when referring to games that at this point were already 20 years old is kind of ridiculous. Like, I don't really know why I did that. But Imp Shadow says, LOL, I am very late, sorry. You're not. I mean, we've been at this for what, 7 minutes. You're 7 minutes into what's going to be like an hour and a half long live stream, so you're not that late. So yeah, this is when I was like, oh, like I'm a grown adult, and I'm an adult person talking about things that are of interest to adult people, and I'm going to swear in my YouTube show, my internet show, and I did that a lot. And in hindsight, I don't like that. Not because like people now will like not do it because they're gonna get demonetized, which like all my videos are. I don't monetize them anyways. Everything is Patreon and YouTube membership, so I don't do that stuff anyways. But I just don't like doing it because I just don't. I mean, it doesn't bother me when other people do it. A lot of people I like swear in their videos and stuff, but for me, it's just like there's no reason that these videos can't be family friendly, and so I just, I just kind of keep them that way. The screen caps are so bad that I had to put numbers on them to point out like these are the options that I'm talking about because. This quality kind of sucks. Let's see. Imp Shadow says you look different at the first time you're doing this. Yeah, I was in my 20s. I was not losing that much of my hair yet. I hadn't grown a beard yet, although there is, I think, some beard appearance in this. In what we'll be seeing in the first year. So. Robert James says, I love the wrestling DVD behind you in these old videos. Mick Foley is king. Yeah, I still have all those. I never got rid of any of my wrestling DVDs. I still have all of those old WWE DVDs and some of them. You can see that yellow one on the shelf that's to my left is a Japanese DVD that I got in Japan. That's a Best of Tiger Mask. It's pretty good. Rex Warden says many people tend to grow out of casual profanity. I didn't grow out of that. I still swear a lot in life. My wife also swears a lot, and if you ever watch our live streams, I swear quite a bit. But I just, for the show, I just feel like it's not... I just don't like doing it in the show. I feel like there's a better way to get your point across. There came a time when I really, really, really didn't want to be viewed as an AVGN anything, even though James Rolfe was a huge influence on anybody who was making videos as early as 2011. I think James Rolfe was probably the influence, not in terms of necessarily style or substance, just in terms of there's a swear. There's one right there. There's another one. Which is true, by the way. Stage 3 is generally the hardest stage in the game, but actually, in the arcade version, Stage 5 is way harder than Stage 3. But anyways, there's another one. F-bombs all over the place. Yeah, James Rolfe, in terms of just like, you can do this, and people care to watch things about old video games on the internet. That was his big influence. But a lot of people took it to the next level and were just like, I'm also going to yell about poop while I... talk about old video games, and I didn't want to do that. And so that was part of deciding, like, I'm just not going to have swears in the videos at all anymore. Y&V Gamer says, hey Joe, I'm your fan and I'm 13. That's crazy, man. Thanks. I mean, shout outs. I shouldn't say man. I don't know. I can't tell from your handle or your avatar your gender. But that's crazy. I appreciate that. I'm glad that there are people that age who think that this stuff is worth, caring about. It's so having played a lot of the arcade versions of these games lately, because as I've said in the last video, the next video, the 10th anniversary video that's going to go up this weekend, is also about Salamander and Life Force, and seeing these stages, like the NES version, changing these stages from just black asteroid fields into something cool with this like rad skull boss was such a good move. It makes the game much more interesting. Starcast says, for a second I thought you were going to say you had FMW. I don't have any FMW. I used to have... That wasn't FMW, actually, but I was going to say I used to have the ICP Stranglemania VHS, which had the King of the Deathmatch, like, Mick Foley stuff on it, but that got lost in a move where I lent it to a friend and he never gave it back, or he lost it or something, so I don't have that anymore, but I don't have any FMW stuff. Snarkcast says, I think James was 2007. Sorry, should have given a flashing screen warning. That's another interesting thing. The Hamster Arcade Archives versions don't do the flashing screen when the Disco Bot shows up. They just do slowly. The screen gets brighter until it's totally whited out, except for your ship, and that stays that way until you kill it. Which, based on what Mike Micah told me about the shadows in Street Fighter Alpha on the Anniversary Collection on PS4, is probably a current epilepsy standard that like Sony makes them do, which is good because like I always thought that was horrifying. Like I remember reading that stuff in the instruction manual, and then like once I learned what an epileptic seizure was, I was like, that would be so terrible. Especially to find out you have epilepsy by playing a video game, like that would be the worst. And I'm really glad that they go out of their way to not do that anymore. Of course, we can talk about Cyberpunk. Let's not talk about Cyberpunk, though. Let's see here. Snarkcast said, I think James was 2007. His first videos on YouTube were 2006, but even by 2011, he still had an outsized influence on everybody. Like, absolutely, 100%. Lord Tebow Baggin says, hey, Joe, I prefer your approach. I'm a retro gamer myself, and I love how informative and researched your show is. I appreciate that. I think you can do research and still swear, but I appreciate it, man. I really try to be thorough about my research, and you know, the last video I did was really a mea culpa for the times that I screwed up the research, because I really beat myself up over that stuff a lot. Excuse me, I swallowed wrong. Moai heads. None of your business says I'm 50 and I'm your fan. That's awesome. If you watch I still like this joke. This is like the hokiest joke possible. I still like this joke. If you listen to the streams and stuff, Kurt, who does streams with us on Wednesdays, he is in his 50s. So I'm glad that there's such a wide age range of people who watch this stuff. Black Condor says, I only watch a few video game channels, but I love this one. I think you hooked me because you liked cool music, but I kept coming back for all the video game versions I'd never seen or even heard of. You must be one of the people who, like, I wore a Jawbreaker shirt or a Less Than Jake shirt in a video, and you decided to hang out and approve of that. Actually, in this video, I'm wearing an IRS Records t-shirt, and even though I never, outside of the Joey Pink videos, I never repeat a t-shirt, which I feel like is something that people don't notice. Nobody really ever comments on that, but that's one of my little Easter eggs that I'm giving away right now. I never repeat t-shirts. I have done 90 some episodes, and I have never, aside from Joey Pink, never worn the same shirt twice.
And then starts shooting lightning at you. And this isn't just any lightning.
So,
this is special lightning that kills your options.
But that IRS Records shirt, I thought about digging it out and wearing it for the video that I'm working on now, but it actually wouldn't fit me anymore because the Quarantine 15 is extremely real, and I have not been biking nearly as much as I should be, and I'm way out of shape, and that shirt would not fit me right now, even if I could find it. I know I still have it. I can get rid of it, but it wouldn't fit me, so... Lord Tebow Baggins says did a whole Hayabusa show last Friday. Man, R.I.P. Hayabusa. He was a guy. Black Condor says it was 100% the Jawbreaker shirt. One of my top 5 favorite bands of all time. I love Jawbreaker. I saw them at Riot Fest in 2018, I think that was, in Chicago, and it was like a religious experience. This is probably the closest I'll ever get to a religious experience, so... Snarkcast said, yep, like when you went off on me in a positive way when I posted Sky is Not Dead. Sky is not dead. Although I did go to several shows back in the day that were called Sky is Dead and You're Next. That were like Mustard Plug and Planet Smashers, and like I voted for Kodos and stuff. But, big fan of ska as well. Black Hunter says, in the freshest cat possible theme song that was there for a bit. Yeah, that was my friend Matt's band. The song that is used in these old episodes is also my friend Matt's band. Different band, same friend Matt. So he did this original theme, which was called "Dead Wrapped in Plastic," which is a song about Twin Peaks, and then they did the Freshest Cat. His other band did the Freshest Cat Possible, and I used that for a long time. But then I just wanted someone to do something that sounded maybe a little more like it was appropriate for a video game show, and I had Dia do a song for me. And you can buy, I think, all of those songs on Bandcamp and stuff. I know White Wrench Conservatory, who did Freshest Cat Possible, almost positive they have a Bandcamp page where you can buy that song. And Dia, for sure, has a Bandcamp page where you can buy the current theme song, Crash Course. So, Gooey Mongol says, "Greetings from Brazil. Please make more videos. We like the quality that you make." Thank you for greetings from Brazil. Smoke Monster's in the chat. His wife is Brazilian, if I'm not mistaken. He lived there for a while, and I appreciate it. I really do, and I will keep making more videos. I'm working on one right now. I'm taking a break from editing to do this right now. So, Don Chaffee says, "I have the quarantine 30 frowny face." Yeah, that's probably closer to true for me too. Y&V Gamer says, "Can you review Batman games, and have you met James Rolfe before?" I have done a Batman episode. I've done 2 Batman episodes, actually. I did a Batman, all the games based on Batman 89, except for I think there's a PC game that I didn't talk about. But all the games except for the possible PC game based on Batman 89, and then I did one on The Adventures of Batman and Robin animated series, games based on the animated series. And have I met James Rolfe before? Have I met James? I've been in the same room with James. I don't know that I ever actually, went up to him and bothered him or anything like that. I'm trying to remember. I don't think so, because he's kind of scarce at conventions. Like, he'll be at a panel, and then he'll do a signing, but I am 1,000,000% not the type of person who waits in line for a signing, especially from, an internet star. Like, I waited in a line once to meet Crispin Glover after seeing him present one of his movies. But I'm just not the type to do that. So I don't think I've ever met James, but I've been to a couple of his panels, and I've heard him speak live and introduce episodes and introduce his films. One year at MagFest, there was a really great, a midnight movies panel. And he presented Mr. Bucket, Dream Phone and Mr. Bucket. And then some people, there were other kind of horror themed, and sort of midnight movie-ish videos that people presented. So, Robert James says, "Did giving the edge at the end of the videos come from somewhere, or did you come up with that yourself as the gimmick?" That was the gimmick. I just was talking over it, but I sort of explained, it's not a review show. I don't really want it to be a review show. I want it to be... I forgot that our old podcast email is on the end of this video. If people have been sending emails to me, to that email address, no one ever checks it. I totally lost my... I didn't want it to be a review show, really, in terms of, I give this, a 5 out of 7, or whatever, but, Giving the Edge was just which version is the best one? Which one is better? Even though it's not a review show, I'll say, this is the one I prefer, this is the one you should check out if you want to. That was the idea. But it's not a reference to something else. Lord Tebow Baggins says, "Is Joey Pink going to be Streets of Rage 4 DLC?" I wish. I hope. Someday. Y&V Gamer says, "I really want to meet James Rolfe. I'm a big fan of his too." Once this pandemic nonsense is over and we can start having conventions and stuff again, you'll probably have a chance. He's not rare. So here's some footage of my illustrious wrestling career. I have a separate YouTube channel called Joey Pink's VHS Emporium, And you can go there and you can watch a lot of my old matches on that channel if you're interested.
WrestleMania edition of same name, different game. But I'll tell you, it's no picnic. This is a dirty job.
Klaus Kilski says, "Do you know about the YouTube channel The Black Focus? He did a great video about Crispin Glover." I do not, but I'll have to check that out. So this is the first appearance of Joey Pink, and I did not have the Heels Wear Pink shirt yet at the time. So that is a shirt for a local Milwaukee band, The Response, and it was actually, I think, a ladies' t-shirt, and then I cut it into like a Stevie Richards style midriff t-shirt. But I think I only wore it to the ring once or twice, because I also had a pink fishnet shirt that I really liked to wear, but I felt like I was a little too... This is hilarious. I felt like I was a little too out of shape here to wear the fishnet, which is funny, because I'm looking at myself in this video and being like, I wish I was in that good a shape now, because, again, to reiterate, the Quarantine 15 is for real. Lord Tebow Baggins wants to know, why did you stop wrestling? It's a handful of reasons. The biggest reason is that I'm not going to name names because I don't like doing that, but someone told me, someone who was in a position to have a general idea, told me in about 2003 that, in so many words, if I didn't start doing steroids, I was never going to be able to make a living at wrestling, or never was going to sign with, WWE, which at the time was basically the only game in town. And I didn't want to do that. And I just, ultimately you start getting hurt and stuff, and you start missing things 'cause you're gone every weekend, and I kind of got burned out, honestly. And it's been a number of years since I've had a match, and I miss it in some ways. Obviously now it's not really a great atmosphere to get into that again either way, so but we'll see what happens in the future. Snarkast says, that reminds me I should check to see if Joey Pink is in Fire Pro World. He is, but I don't remember if I uploaded him to Steam Workshop or not. I don't think I did, because I think I was still fine-tuning him, and I never honestly went back and did finish fine-tuning him, because I play with there's so many wrestlers on Steam Workshop for that game that I just grab them all, and I like to do classic matches or fantasy matches, and I don't really put myself in there very much. But I might have uploaded it to Steam Workshop. If you search for it, you'll find out right away. Robert James wants to know, what was your finisher as a wrestler? So the Joey Pink finisher, my main finisher was the kill switch, or the unprettier, that Christian uses. I called it the pink plunge. But yeah, I really liked it. I liked doing it. I sometimes used Angel Wings, Christopher Daniels' finisher, the double arm facebuster. But I like the kill switch, the pink plunge. That's what I like to use. So that was,
is the only common character between these two games, which is odd considering his stints were shown. Sir Oliver Humperdinck.
YNV Gamer says it's not possible for me to meet James because I don't live in the US, I live in Australia. I feel like he's done international travel before. Once we can do normal things again, you can hope. Are you in Australia? What time is it in Australia, man? Like, isn't it like... I'm trying to remember when I was in Japan. I feel like the time zone's not that far off. Anyways,
I think that's supposed to be a body slam, but
this game is so terrible. Look at that. Look at this. That's the body slam. And I think Hulk is the only one who can do a body slam in this game, if I remember correctly, or he was one of few people. The game is garbage. The music is great, though. Girls in Cars is a jam, and I will die on this hill. Girls in Cars rules. The Strike Force theme that is in that game, even though neither member of Strike Force is in this game. The Strike Force theme is in the game, and it rules. Aragorn7884 wants to know, is the tattoo on my stomach legit? It is. It's in fact, it's still there. know if that is that framed up. No,
You've got the honky tonk man.
it's still there.
Intercontinental champion all time.
In case you ever doubted, if you were gonna call me out and try to doubt me, it's still there. In Australia, it's 3:31 p.m. Okay, so that's right. It goes backwards, I think, right? Or whatever. Klaus Kilski says here in Germany it's 5:31 in the morning. That's bonkers. I can't believe you're watching this at 5:30 in the morning. Thank you. Chris BG99 says, I remember playing a lot of this as a kid. Knew it was bad, but yet there I was. I wasn't even a wrestling fan then. I was a wrestling fan, and I did play the WrestleMania game quite a bit as well. I remember renting it on multiple occasions. The secret origin of Strong Bad. Some people still don't know that. I thought that was common knowledge for a while, but some people are still like, oh, that's where that came from. I really want to do a full video on this game someday. It's not going to be this year, I don't think, but this game rules. I love Tecmo World Wrestling. I would argue it's the best wrestling game on the NES, and I like the little commentary guide and stuff. This game is hot garbage. I think everybody knows that, though. Aragorn says, fan of AEW, and why? The only weekly wrestling show I watch right now is Dynamite. So, I like what AEW is doing. I watch NXT sometimes, and I watch the WWE pay-per-views, but the only, weekly show that I watch is Dynamite. Let's see here. Snarkast says, I remember watching the Girls in Cars at the Slammy Awards with Jimmy Hart saying, that's a great segment. Girls in Cars is 100% Jimmy Hart trying to write a Kenny Loggins song, and you know what? It's fantastic. It works for me. Tebow Baggins wants to know, what are the Brewers' chances of winning in the NL Central? 100%. No, I don't know. The Cardinals have a really good roster, and they got Arenado, so I don't know, man. Winning the division, not great. Getting into the playoffs, we'll see. Snarkast says, grew up in a very strict Georgia Championship Wrestling NWA WCW family. My dad hated WWF and lost his mind when Black Saturday happened. Yeah, I mean, that was before. So my dad was a AWA fan when he was a kid, and used to talk about the Crusher and all that stuff when I was a kid. Taught me about the Crusher and taught me how to call people a turkey neck. And always would talk about. In fact, my dad and I used to call each other bum when I was a kid, and it started because he was riffing on the Crusher, who would always talk about, I'm going to take those two bums and stuff them in a garbage can and roll them down Mitchell Street, talking about the Vachon brothers. Crusher and Dick the Bruiser had a long-standing feud with the Vachon brothers. Tell you what I'm going to do, take those two turkey necks, stuff them in a garbage can, and roll them down Mitchell Street, which is a street in Milwaukee. So, you know. Robert James says, guess who? It was Bruiser Brody favorite promo. Bruiser Brody's a good promo, man. I love Bruiser Brody.
Are you fucking kidding me? Doink the clown.
Dang, another F-bomb. Still crazy, by the way, and it seems like nobody really totally knows the answer to this question as to why Diesel is not in the video game, but Doink is. I've seen clips of shoot interviews where Nash himself is sort of like the shoot interview, the interviewer is like, why weren't you in the video game? And he's just kind of like, I don't really know. Nobody called me. And it's just like, that's weird that the champion was not in this game. So, but you know, Doink was. What a rough roster. This tells you all you need to know about the roster depth of 1995 WWF. It's like Doink the Clown and Lex Luger, made in the USA Lex Luger, are prominently featured. And this is after Lex's run was basically... By the time the PlayStation port came out, actually, he had already gone to WCW, which I don't actually mention in this video. But by the time this version was out, he was gone from WWF.
Because in the Royal Rumble, well, you know something being cheated in the Royal Rumble.
Don Chaffee says Doink lobbied to keep Diesel out as far as I remember. I love this clip. I found this clip. I don't even think I could re-find this clip now if I tried, because I thought it was from a pay-per-view report, and then when I looked back and found it, I couldn't find that exact snippet. So I just keep taking it from old videos. Like, I just go back to an old video and cut it out and put it in the new videos. But that's sort of one of my running gags. Almost every WrestleMania video I've had features that clip of Mean Gene explaining what the Royal Rumble is. But I gotta be honest. I gotta be honest, Don. I don't think that Matt Bourne had the stroke to keep Diesel out of a video game. I don't see that as being a thing. But maybe, I guess, I don't know. Tebow Baggins says my favorite promo is still the Kane Dewey ECW promo. That's a good promo. I don't know if I could pinpoint my favorite promo of all time. It would be, I don't know. Dusty Rhodes Hard Times promo is really good. I think the Jake Roberts WrestleMania 6 promo about how Ted DiBiase is going to grovel for the money that is his own and how appropriate that is. That's a really good promo too. The Ric Flair, not the original with a tear in my eye, the NWA one. The WWF Royal Rumble 92 with a tear in my eye promo is really good too. This is a game that I need to revisit pretty badly, because there's a bunch of stuff that I don't mention, and like one of the things is like I riff on this, like, oh, this is the ending, and like this is what you get, and that's true. But in the arcade version, there are actually like character specific endings, and then apparently in Razor Ramon's he dies. He goes back to Miami and gets shot or something in a drug war scenario or something. Aragorn says, any chance of SNDG for WWF Royal Rumble on Dreamcast and arcade versions? So there is the second WrestleMania special was on Royal Rumble for the Genesis and the Dreamcast. I think if I ever got a board, I might revisit it. But I don't know that I have a lot more to say about it, especially because it is a Naomi game, I believe, which means that it's basically identical to the Dreamcast version. And I think I kind of exhausted everything that I had to say. You can tell I raised it up and it goes out of frame, and you can tell that I can see it on the viewfinder, and I lower my hand. Here's the winner. Up. Let's keep it here. Use the old school. I forgot that I did this. Use the old school WWF theme music. Make a Titan Sports joke there. Arcade Flyers. They have been credited in more videos, I think, maybe than anybody else in terms of resources. Robert James says Steve Austin's first ECW promo is great. That's true, it is. World of Abandoned Witch says, have you played WWF in Your House, the sequel? Yes, I have. It's real bad. It's real bad, but... Black Condors has to go. Says, thanks, Joe. You're welcome, and thanks for coming and hanging out. Seafoam Gaming says, I got on the marathon before bed. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. Unlikely Toad says, just popping in to say congrats. I thoroughly appreciate your content. Thank you. I'm glad you popped in to say so. Robert James says, bought in your house for $2 at a thrift shop. It's okay. You can do better by playing Superstars. Superstars is much better than in your house, for sure. So all this is true, by the way, what I'm saying right here. That is really me at 11 years old. My cousin really did write that article about media violence for her high school newspaper, what would eventually be my high school newspaper, because we went to the same high school. And my mom found that and dug it out and gave it back to me, and I still have it. This is 10 years ago. I still have that. And I don't remember where I put it, but yeah, like I said, I was doing Kano's heart rip, and I celebrating ripping out someone's heart, and she took a picture and put it in the high school newspaper. So. Robert James says I meant All Stars. All Stars is the worthy successor to WrestleMania. Sal DeVita worked on both WrestleMania Arcade and All Stars, so there's the connection. Gene Aries says New Jack's promos were awesome, and they were something. He also says congrats, thank you. Seafoam Gaming says what happened to the hair? I lost it. You can actually see that it's thinning. It was already thinning then. If you look at my forehead, you can see that it's thinning. And right after I got married, basically, it was thinning so much. It was... and then the back especially, which you don't see as much, but sometimes when I turn to the side, you can see that it was thinning in the back as well already at this time. But within a couple of years of this, it got so bad that I just ended up shaving it all off. Summer of 2013 is when I shaved it all off and started growing the beard. So... I had very excellent hair, if I do say so myself. Sometimes I miss it, but also it's one of those hairstyles that I always had one of those hairstyles that's kind of a pain in the ass to maintain. Like, you have to get up and do your hair before you leave the house, which don't got to do that with this look, that's for sure. Not that anybody's leaving the house now anyways, right? So, on C-SPAN's, I downloaded this. This was right after C-SPAN made all their stuff like easily available. Their whole archive you can download because it's a public, it's taxpayer funded public deal. So you can download like anything you want from C-SPAN's website. So if you search for these hearings, you can watch the whole. It's like several hours long, but you can watch the whole hearing if you want to. And Howard Lincoln is such a sanctimonious dick in those hearings. It's almost spectacular to bear witness to. But yeah, it's Rex Warden says Nintendo elects not to censor games on their system. They still request changes or make changes on some stuff. I remember there was a big dust up a number of years ago about there was a Fatal Frame game that came out, and in the Japanese version, like, you could have the girls be in their underwear or something ridiculous and eye-rolling like that. And then in the US version, since Nintendo like co-published it, they changed it to like a Samus outfit and a Zelda outfit and whatever. So they do still ask for changes to some things, but I don't really. I mean, it depends on the game, but in the case of Mortal Kombat, like, that is the appeal of Mortal Kombat. The violence is the reason people played it, and when you strip that out, you just have like a fighting game that's not as good as Street Fighter 2. So, let's see. Aragorn says, can you spoil the special for 10k subs, assuming you have one? I put in a poll a long time ago because I thought I was going to get there faster based on how many subscribers I got early in the year. People wanted a game room tour. I don't know. This game room is really small, so I'm probably going to pair that with like a Q&A thing. So that's probably all it'll be. Because the 10th anniversary is today. 10k subs is probably going to happen like this week. And the 100th episode is coming up at the end of the summer. So like, I adding another video special for 10K. I just don't really have a way to fit that into the schedule or like the energy to make a big deal out of it. So it's going to be a more traditional, what a lot of people do for 10K, which is just like a Q&A and a quick game room tour. But this room is so small, it's not going to be much of a tour. Let's see here. I'm falling behind on the chat here. Wow. Okay.
Has no such restraints about the silhouettes. Defeating Reptile, both versions.
Crispy G99 says those hearings make me mad when I watch them. It's legit. It's really frustrating. That was the first any bit of political activism I ever did was around those hearings. So I lived in Wisconsin at the time. I think I mentioned it in this video already, but Herb Kohl was a senator from Wisconsin, and it was him and Lieberman who were the spearhead, and I sent a letter to Senator Kohl as a kid and saying, like, I know the difference between fantasy and reality, and it's disrespectful of you to assume that because I'm young, I don't know, to police the video games that I want to play and this, that, and the other thing. That was like the first politically active thing that I did in my life, was send a letter to Herb Kohl as like an 11-year-old and say, hey man, leave my video games alone.
Also, the CPU is dumb as
Gooey Mongol says, make a video showing the backstage secrets from WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game. DeVita confirms rumors that Diesel is a playable character and recorded some moves for the game. Yeah, I mean, I would have to find them first. I actually was really hoping that Midway documentary that came out this year, Insert Coin, which I kickstarted and have since watched and really enjoyed, and do recommend if you're into video game history. I hope that would shed some light on it, but it in the final cut it didn't. Maybe in some of the special features they'll talk about it and shed some light on that. Seafoam Gaming says the Fatal Frame thing was so dumb. It was a skimpy outfit. They replaced him with Nintendo costumes and people got so irate. People get mad about silly stuff about video games. Maverick 0360 says Howard Lincoln was very good at his job, but such a snake. I mean, he was a lawyer, I say. I'm married to a lawyer, so I probably shouldn't say that. But, I mean, he wasn't... I don't know that he was... I don't know. He was what they needed him to be, I guess. No love lost for Howard Lincoln on my end. Derek Barnes says, my dad was cool enough to get me the Arcade Perfect PC Mortal Kombat when I was 13. So when I was the age to play this, I got the Genesis one when it came out, but I didn't have a gaming PC. I didn't have a modern PC that could play, DOS games when it came out, so that was not an option for me. Snarkcast mentions in those hearings they claim the arcade version of Mortal Kombat was the Genesis version, which, yeah, that was ridiculous.
There are two major differences in endings as far as the graphics.
Rex Warden said, I'd seen stuff on par with Mortal Kombat fatalities in real life before the game ever came out. That's heavy, dude. I'm sorry that that's been your experience. That is not cool. But politicians never cared about cleaning up high crime areas, safer to tilt at windmills. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I have a lot to say about that currently. I think that there have been some, well-intentioned but misguided attempts at tough-on-crime legislation that ultimately does more harm. So, I don't know. I don't have those answers. Derek Barnes says Super Smash TV was plenty violent and reached the system untouched. That's not true. I haven't played Super Smash TV in a long time, but in the arcade version, like when you shoot off Mutoid Man's arms, like a geyser of blood shoots out, and I feel like that is not in the Super NES version. They turned it green or something. It wasn't red blood. Rex Warden says no amount of censorship is acceptable. If you don't want the content, don't buy it, don't watch it, read it. So I agree that censorship is not acceptable, but I also define censorship as when it's done with the force of law. Like Nintendo being like, we're publishing this on our platform and we're going to make a change. I have no problem with that. But I mean, sure, if you don't like it, if you don't like that change, you know, if you're really that upset about the lack of the girls in skimpy clothes option that was in the Japanese version of Fatal Frame or whatever, then don't buy it. But I don't view that as censorship, honestly. And if you watch videos I've done where I talk about those kinds of changes, I actually am very careful to not use the word censorship anymore. I do use it in this video, but I don't consider that censorship. I think that is a platform holder making a decision that might not be a good decision, but it's their decision nonetheless, in my view. Tebow Baggins says Howard Lincoln wrecked the Mariners, though. Yeah, well, I don't know. There was a lot that went into that, I feel like, but I don't know. Aragorn says, been a sub for years and years now, so congrats. I find the best channels are the ones with 10 to 100k subs. I'm going to change your mind about that when I get to 100k and 1 subs, and then hopefully you'll still think that I'm great then. Unlikely Toad says, more personal backstories and childhood memories a la Classic Gaming Quarterly Plus is my vote for additional subscribers, special content. Yeah, I don't know. I like it when he does that stuff. We've done some stuff like that, flipped through old magazines and sort of reminisced on streams and stuff. The live stream channel, by the way, is On The Stick TV, youtube.com/OnTheStickTV, and we do weekly live streams. You get more of that kind of stuff there. 80s Rule says both Super NES and Genesis have RGB. That's true. They both natively output RGB. The Super NES RGB signal is pretty noisy and kind of sucks for most Super Nintendo models. Snarkast says Super NES Smash TV does have red blood, but didn't have your players' flying body parts. Okay. I hadn't played it in a really long time, so. Victor Bowden says, initially I hated the Genesis. MK1 changed my opinion about the system. Multi-platform fighters always played better on the Genesis. I don't know that that's universally true, but Mortal Kombat definitely did. Definitely played better. Not just the blood, but actually did play better than the Super NES. So, agree with that. Seafoam Gaming says censorship nowadays would be more akin to Sero banning decapitations in games in Japan. Well, right, that's an actual... And Australia, I think. We had an Australian in the chat earlier, but Australia has actual government censorship. A government board has to approve games before they can be released, so... Robert James says, I enjoyed music from MK1. I also enjoyed how your view changed. Yeah, absolutely. So, here's the funny thing about this episode. This is the only episode of Same Name, Different Game, the main series, not Gaiden. This is the only episode of the main series where you will not see me on camera. And that is because I had just gotten a new laptop. And my laptop... So my old desktop tower, which was my wife's desktop tower that she got for college originally, and became mine when she got a laptop. Then I got a laptop. And my laptop... didn't have a FireWire port, and since I was using a mini DV cam at the time, there was no way, I didn't know how to get the footage off of it, and eventually I had to rig this bizarre thing that was like USB 2.0 to FireWire, you know, I don't remember how I even I did it, honestly. But eventually I figured it out. But for this video, to get it done on time, I didn't have time to sort that out. So that's why you just don't see me on camera. I believe the voiceovers for this video are recorded on my Rock Band USB mic with a sock over it as a pop filter. That is, I believe, how I did this. So. Oh, NES Strider, by the way, one of the extremely underrated soundtracks of the NES era.
Well, that's a lot of acts to be executing, so you can rest assured that they're tough. I mean, I can instigate, but I rarely explode. Anyways, you play as Strider Hiru, the youngest ever to reach Strider 8.
Derek Barnes says, I like how the Master System has been recognized as hugely underrated console as of recent. I agree. I didn't get a Master System until probably 9 years ago, I think. 8 or 9 years ago, I got a Master System, and I really like it. I think there's a lot of really good games on the Master System that people, you know, especially Americans, are not aware of. So, soundtrack is so good. Also, yes, it's a stealth Metroidvania. Also, it's just the problem with Strider on the NES, and I think I touch on this later, is it honestly, it feels a little unfinished. Like, it didn't quite have enough time in the oven. And, yeah. Egypt is in Africa, Capcom, so it's weird that you would say Africa. But I think, if I'm trying to remember, and I think in the Japanese beta, I think there's a Japanese beta, or maybe it's a US beta that came out that somebody found and dumped. Africa is Kenya or something like that, where it's like a specific African country, but in the release version they changed it to Africa. It's ridiculous. But yeah, this game would be an all-timer if some of the jank had been ironed out of it. But there's some really weird stuff with the jumping that is just insufferable. That if it was ironed out, if you took care of all that stuff where you were not like jumping and falling through platforms, this game would be legit for sure.
It's solid in a lot of ways, but it just seems unfinished. The jumping is.
So now that I'm thinking about what I said that I don't appear on camera because I couldn't figure out how to get the footage from my camera to the computer, but also at this time I was using the video inputs on the camera to record game footage to DV tapes as well. And so now I'm trying to remember how either I just didn't have time, like I figured it out in time to get the game footage and dump it, but not in time to like do stand-ups and all that stuff. And so I just decided not to do it, but now I can't remember. Either I did it a different way, because it wasn't until I think the Double Dragon 2 episode, which was the following year, was the first episode where I had a capture card. I used a Dazzle originally. Composite S-Video is the best quality the Dazzle had. And I just used composite for pretty much the whole time, but I used a Dazzle for a long time. So you can tell early on I was really not prepared to cover a whole bunch of versions of games. And, you know, instead of covering the Genesis version, which really I probably should have, I used the PlayStation 1 version, which is not an emulation, it's still a port. And it's actually a really good port. And it is very true to the arcade, like all of Capcom's arcade ports of that time. Like the Capcom, what is it? Capcom Memories or whatever? No, I can't remember. The PS1, there was a series of them. That it was they each had a couple 2-tree games on them, and those are ports as well, not emulation, and they run really nice. They're really good, really high quality ports, just like this. Victor Bowden says the music on the Red Dragon and Strider was amazing. Hell yeah, all of it is. Rex Warden says I hacked Strider for NES, but only as far as cleaning up some of the spelling and grammar. That's a help for sure. I hate this remix soundtrack so much. I say so in this video. I still hate it. Because it's like an imitation of a symphony orchestra, but it's not. It's very clearly not that. So, like, why bother? Tebow Baggins says he doesn't have a Master System, but he has a Genesis EverDrive, which will play most SMS games, which is, yeah, absolutely. Gene Aries says Strider on NES is one of his top 5 Capcom games on the NES. I mean, I respect your opinion, man. I can't go there with you. I don't agree with you, but I respect it. One of my top 5 Capcom soundtracks on the NES, for sure. Seafoam Gaming says, since the Japanese prototype was found after this episode launched, would there be anything added if this was made nowadays? Yeah, probably. I don't have a ton of experience with that prototype, so but yeah, if I did this episode again, there would be a lot more happening in this episode. Rex Warden says there are far fewer systems that I don't own than I do. I mean, I think that's the case with a lot of people. Dragging my feet on buying a Neo Geo Pocket Color as people want ridiculous money for them now and replacement shells are MIA. It's gotten so ridiculous. I was just talking to someone on a forum about that. That laugh sample is so good. Flying Battleship Balrog rules for sure. But yeah, Neo Geo Pocket Color stuff has gone crazy lately. It's a really great system, though. And I used to advocate it as, like, it's really great and it's cheap to collect for. That's not true anymore. But when I got mine, which was, I think, about 8 years ago, I think 10 years ago or 11 years ago was the PC Engine. Maybe 9 years ago was the Master System. 8 years ago was the Neo Geo Pocket Color. I didn't buy any new systems last year. 2 years ago, I got a Neo Geo, though, so I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good for buying an old game system about once a year, I guess. So, or every other year, maybe it evens out too. Robert James says there's lots of betrayal in the NES game. Yeah, there is. Everybody's a turncoat in the NES Strider for sure. Victor Bowden mentioned, as I said in the video, that there's a misprint on the disc art for the PlayStation Strider. Strider 2 is Strider, and Strider is Strider 2. If you look at the disc labels, it's really weird. Seafoam Gaming says Capcom Generations. Yes, that's correct. Tosco says the NES version was one of the early games I added to my collection back in high school when I was going to an antique mall for retro games before I found a local game store. Brings back memories. Get them where you can, get them where you can. Tebow Baggins says learned about the EverDrive from me, so I'm glad I did something. Did something for someone. I let you know EverDrives exist. Seafoam Gaming says about to pounce on a retro USB AVS. I mean, worth it. If you can't. So I splurged to get the HDMI mod on my top-loading NES. Actually, it's an AV Famicom technically. I splurged, but that was also before the AVS was available, I think. And the AVS is a really great piece of kit for sure. Snarkcast still regrets selling his Neo Geo Pocket Color. You should. It's an awesome system. You should regret selling it. Seafoam Gaming says had a Pokemon Mini and it died from the battery leaking. Oh, that's rough, man. That is rough. Robert James says seems like DuckTales and Strider NES have a lot in common. They were developed around the same time. I mean, they kind of do, except one of those games is good and the other one is Strider on the NES, which again is so close to being good. That's louder than the last episode. Strider on the NES is so close to being good, and it's just not. So this is the Aladdin video. This was, I'm going to say it at the top of the video once it starts, but I mentioned something about like, this is the most requested episode, and it really was. There are people who were watching the show on wherever they were watching it, on Blip, on onthestick.com, and on the forum that I was a member of at the time and stuff. So many people were like, you got to do Aladdin. And there's the beginning of the beard. Beard is starting in this one. It does seem that way. That's the gimmick, yeah.
Both are done by completely different developers, published by completely different publishers. One is considered a classic in its library, although both are considered excellent in their own right. If you haven't figured it out yet, on this episode, we're talking about Disney's Aladdin.
If you haven't figured it out, which means you somehow fast forward through the... Everybody does that, I do it too, but it's so silly. It's like, you know, if you didn't watch the intro to the video that you're watching or read the title before you clicked on it, I'm talking about Aladdin. But there's almost no way that you're watching this without doing those things, so you know that it's already about Aladdin.
Over $500 million when all was said and done, and quite naturally, much merchandise followed, including some video games.
Seafoam Gaming says, I think I first watched your videos in 2013 with the Double Dragon 2 episode and Image Fight. So, Image Fight was 2014. Yeah, 2014. Yeah, Double Dragon 2 was 2012. There's only one episode from 2013. I only did one episode in 2013. But the Double Dragon 2 episode would have been out there in 2013 for sure. So,
You see, Capcom has Disney rights for Nintendo platforms, but not Sega platforms. So, Virgin had them for Sega platforms, and the games turned out.
there's a lot of these host segments where I absolutely should have done a second take or an additional take, and I didn't. And it bothers me more than I can tell you. It really gets to me that I did not do additional takes on this.
The gameplay is the same as Capcom's Super Nintendo title is basically a Mario-esque.
Robert James says the beard looks good on you. Well, thank you, Robert. I like it. My wife likes it. That's the most important thing, right? I take much better care of the beard now than I did back then. Back then, I just sort of like let it grow, and then when I got bored of it, I would shave it off. But now, like, I use beard shampoo and conditioner, and I put beard oil in it when I get out of the shower and all that stuff. So I'm like very much aware of the beard care, you know, these days. There's an episode, and I'm trying to remember if it's one that we'll watch or not. There's definitely an episode where the beard is just like, it's a little bit too out of control and not like really trimmed. Like I trimmed yesterday. I trimmed my beard. But like there's a video that is on the channel where it's like, it's like, what were you doing, man? It's not combed. It's not well maintained. It just, you look like the wild man of Borneo, dude. What are you doing? So.
The music, yeah, it's probably better on the SNES, but Tommy Tallarico did the Genesis music, and it sounds pretty good for a non-Sega.
So I'm going to stand by this one and actually say that it's really close, actually. The music is pretty good on both systems on this one.
Take a listen.
So I also find it weird that I used to, and I don't know why I structured this way, but I used to talk about the graphics and the sound like much earlier in the videos, which doesn't feel natural at all anymore. Like I watch these and I'm like, why are you talking about this now? But excuse me. There's a lot of reverb on the Super NES, but I like both soundtracks quite a bit. The Capcom sound team they were pretty, you know, they're pretty good, but so is Tommy Tallarico, even if he's kind of being a big weirdo about this and television thing lately. He's a good musician, good sound programmer. His soundtrack for the Terminator Sega CD game actually like legitimately rips. That's if you've never heard that, it's awesome. Recommend that one.
Genesis, in spite of its ability to display from a meager palette of 512 colors, as compared to the Super Nintendo's over 32,000, shows us
Seafoam Gaming says, what inspired the creation of Roger the Retro Gaming Puppet, and when did he debut? I assume Obscure Games was a bit longer than Resident Evil. Yeah. So, so Obscure Games came out because there's a guy named Chris who used to run a website called GameFira.com, and you can, if you watch the old episodes of Obscure Old Games, you'll see the GameFira, like there's a GameFira bumper at the beginning of them. He was basically, he put out a thing on Twitter and was like, hey, I'm looking for, like a video series to help launch, like, this is going to be like a community site, but also like, we're going to editorially choose stuff and like put it out there. And it was sort of kind of trying to be like a second Screw Attack almost. And I was just like, hey man, like I'll do a video show for you. So like I would post same name different game on GameFira, but then I would also post it on thestick.com. And with Obscure Old Games, the first several of them went straight to GameFira and were only on that site for like a couple days or a week or something, I think. And then eventually I would put them on thestick.com, like a day or two or a week or whatever it was after. And then that site kind of just like phased out, sort of imploded, or he just stopped doing it or whatever the thing was. But I kept doing Obscure Old Games. But I was the host of Obscure Old Games for the first handful, right? Like the first 4 or 5. There's even a Joey Pink episode of Obscure Old Games, where my old roommate interviews me. We do like a backstage interview, which was a lot of fun. But that was the story of that. And Roger the Retro Gaming Puppet, Roger himself was a gift from my sister. Ooh, dropping stuff. Roger himself was a gift from my sister, and I'd always wanted to do puppetry. I'd always wanted to try puppeteering, and I just felt like it would be like a good break from seeing my face all the time. I thought it would be fun, and it is fun. The problem is that nobody watches the Roger videos. People watch the videos with me in them way more than the Roger videos, so...
It happens in both versions, but it happens more in the Genesis version.
Frank Carpenter says, I like the film collection and the backgrounds of the early videos. Yeah, like I was saying before you got here, or before you started commenting, maybe you were here the whole time. I still have I never sell movies anymore. I still have all of these DVDs. But I was reminiscing that this was a time when I had few enough movies and video games that they could all fit on one wall's worth of shelving. That is very much not the case anymore. Seafoam Gaming says, I like the Roger ones. They're funny. Especially the epic fight scene from that episode. Yeah, that was the Dunk Heroes, Ganbare Dunk Heroes, Kunio basketball one. Yeah. Yeah, I like Roger too, and I like doing stuff with him. I have been brainstorming a little bit privately about like good ways to have him still be part of the channel, but not like necessarily tank the views every time I have him host a video instead of me. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. He's not going away. He'll never go all the way away. I don't know if you guys are seeing this. Like, I'm getting weird glitches on my side of like the YouTube, like the playlist stuff is like flashing onto the screen. It looks like it's not carrying through to the stream, but if it is, I apologize. I don't know why it's doing that. But ding, F-bomb. I do hate the magic carpet stages in both Aladdin games, though.
My least favorite thing. What's even more ridiculous is that they both have ways to work around it, which raises the question: why?
So Gui Mongol says, What's happening with Eric from Game versus Game? It's more than a year since his last video. I mean, I think you'd have to ask him. The last time I talked to him, he was... I mean, I don't want to tell tales out of school. He basically is on hiatus, near as I can tell. He has not told me, like, I am never making another video. There's that futon again. So, I don't know. I don't know if he's got something in the works or if he's, I mean, he works a full-time job just like a lot of us do. He's got a wife just like a lot of us do. And, it becomes a different kind of thing when you have all that stuff kind of going on in your life. And also this stuff is hard. A lot of people don't, I think, recognize how much work goes into making these kind of videos. There are people on YouTube, a lot of people with bad opinions who, they just flip on a camera or a webcam, kind of like what I'm doing now, and they just record their sort of stream of consciousness about what they're mad about that day, and they post it, and people watch it, and then people sort of get this mistaken idea like, oh, well, if such and such a reactionary garbage person can manage to post 3 videos in a day, how come it takes you a month to do an episode of Same Name Different Game? And I'm not saying that you're saying that, Gui, just to be clear. I'm just sort of explaining a frustration of mine. I'm not saying that this is what you're saying or these are your feelings. I'm not trying to put that on you at all. But some people sort of see those kinds of more low-effort videos, and then they assume that everything is just easy enough that you should be able to do stuff really easily. And I think part of it was probably burnout for Eric Grider from Game vs. Game, but I don't know. We'll see. I hope he makes more stuff, because I like his stuff, obviously. He's been in a bunch of my videos, so... Robert James says, I like 5 Reasons with Roger. They're fun to watch and break up the episodes. They are. They're also very easy to make compared to a full SNDG. 5 Reasons are probably the easiest videos to make. And so I do like making them for that reason. And again, those aren't going away for good. Roger's not going away for good. But it's just, I don't do them quite as much because they don't get as many views. They don't drive, the metrics as much as some of the other stuff. So, Klaus Kilski says, do you collect VHS or Laserdisc? Not actively. I remember there was a girl that I had very heavy flirtation with in college who collected specifically horror VHS, and I remember just being at that time totally mystified and being like, why do you, like, they're so big, they take up so much room, and the image quality is mostly garbage. Why? And, part of it was for her, like, well, there's movies that aren't on DVD, and that's still true, right? There's still stuff that's trapped on VHS. And she was into it. So I have a number of VHS tapes. I don't shy away from it necessarily. I have a VCR. It's actually right next to me right now. VCR with HDMI out that I got is the one that Corey from My Life in Gaming recommended to me. It's what they use to rip their 1080p VHS stuff that they post on the Video Game B-roll channel. So I have one, but I don't collect tapes, no. And Laserdisc, I don't even have a Laserdisc player, so no. Okay, people are saying no, there was no flicker, while one person said they saw it rarely, briefly, whatever. Frank Carpenter says, would you announce a hiatus if you took one? Yeah, if it was going to be longer than a month, if I was going to miss more than a month, and I knew it, and I was planning to do that, I would announce it. I would say I'm taking a break. But I don't have any plans to do that. The production slate right now is basically drawn out through not quite the end of this year, but like a lot of the production slate is done in advance. I always have ideas. There's always stuff I want to be working on. I have no designs on taking a hiatus, but yes, if I was going to, I would let people know beforehand. You know, if I knew, like in 2013, so a lot of people watching this now probably weren't watching in 2013, but in 2013, I basically took the whole year off. Between Halloween of 2012 and like February of 2014, I released 2 videos, one same name, different game, and 1 obscure old games, and that was it. But that was not planned, so I never said like I'm on hiatus or whatever, because that was not the intention. It was just like I was working a lot. I got married in 2013. I moved across the country, changed jobs, blah blah blah, and stuff just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, and then. And it was impossible to deal with technical issues. Like the Super Ghouls and Ghosts episode that I eventually did was originally intended to be the 2013 Halloween episode. But I hung out with my friend Greg one night and was trying to capture footage on emulator using like a ZSNES's built-in recorder or whatever it was. And the footage was so badly bugged it just didn't work, and it was like 3 hours worth of footage, and it was unusable, and that was it. It was just like, well, I don't have another 3 hours to capture that footage again. I mean, I probably could have just like downloaded, you know, a playthrough from, you know, NES Complete or whatever. But I didn't really think to do that. I didn't really want to do that. And so it just didn't happen then. So that was all just a product of like circumstance. I meant to make more videos. I wanted to get more stuff out. I had game footage recorded for some videos. I did a full playthrough of Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Not Metal Gear Solid 2, but Metal Gear 2, the MSX version. I did a full playthrough. Intending to make a video at the end of 2012. In fact, there's one of the like stingers on, I can't remember what episode it is. It's probably the Halloween episode from 2012. At the end, I'm like, next time I'm talking about the sequel to Metal Gear, but not Snake's Revenge. And then it just never happened. The video never got made. Famously, it took me 5 years to make or whatever, I think 5 years, that sounds right, to make the Metal Gear Solid video that I teased multiple times. Around that time, because it just stuff would fall behind and fall behind and fall behind and fall behind. So that happens to some people. It happened to me. But if I knew I was going to take a hiatus, I would announce it. Yes.
And speaking of super throws, I have some minor gripes about the controls. Now, granted, I've spent much more time on the NES game, but the timing of the super
Robert James wants to know, what's your writing process for episodes like? So that's a great question. So usually for me, I play the games first. And I take notes while I'm playing usually. Either I have like a Google Doc open, or sometimes I have like a friend of mine that I used to work with gave me a couple little like Mario Kart notebooks that she got at the dollar store or something. She had like 3 of these. So I'll keep notes in one of these sometimes, or I'll keep a Google Doc open or whatever. And then once I have played all of the games, usually I have a very word vomity process. So like I usually just barf out everything, stream of consciousness, checking my notes, and sort of just. And as I do that, I look for interviews, documentation, stuff like that. I always Smuplations is a huge resource for me. Smuplations.com. Wikipedia is a great place to start when you're doing research. It's not where your research should end, but the sources section of a Wikipedia article can be gold. I found some really offbeat stuff just from Wikipedia sourcing. Like, I found the release date for WWF Rage in the Cage because someone who worked at a Babbage's in 1993 or whatever posted on a newsgroup thread that their store got the game on such and such a date. And the Wikipedia article for that game links back to that Usenet post. So I look stuff up kind of as I'm typing in like a very, again, stream of consciousness, word vomity kind of way. And then I'll usually go back over it, fine tune it, rearrange things. Sometimes I cut whole paragraphs and move them around, change what's voiceover and what's stand up, or decide if I haven't decided on the first pass. And then once I'm satisfied with my rewrite, I send it to my wife, who is a lawyer who writes a lot of legal briefs and stuff, and she's very good at catching, this isn't clear, this is repetitive, you're using the same word. Like, that's both of us have a pet peeve about repeated use of the same word. And we both are big fans of sort of thesaurusing out, like, I don't want to say, I'm trying to think of like a good example. Like, you'll see that I vary up between like stage and level, for example. Like, I try not to say like stage, this stage, that stage, the other stage, 5 stages, 6 stages, stage 7, stage 8. I'll switch it up and do stage, level. I don't use board because I don't like it, even though people do use board to refer to those things, but I don't like that term, so I don't use it very much. But stuff like that. Or if you go back and watch the Superman episode, I try to mix it up, and I don't just refer to him as Superman the whole time. I refer to him as Kal-El, Clark Kent, Clark, the last son of Krypton, Superman, the Man of Steel, so it's not repetitive. My wife's really good at catching that kind of stuff. So I turn it over to her. She's also a layperson. She doesn't play very many video games. She plays some. She can kick my ass in Dr. Mario, but she doesn't play a lot of video games. So she's also very good at, like, I don't understand what you're saying here, and I'm worried that someone who has not played the specific game you're talking about will know what you're talking about. You should rewrite it and make it so that it's easier to understand. And then once she's looked it over, I give it a last look to make sure I don't hate any of her changes, or that she didn't change the meaning of something without meaning to, because she's a lay person when it comes to video games. And then I get ready to shoot. That's pretty much it. So
The PC Engine game features a quest mode, which can be
Seafoam Gaming says, I've been working on a retrospective for Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, and it's been 3 years since the last part, so I feel you despite me promising them for years. Robert James says, production hell is rough with the creative arts. Yeah. Seafoam Gaming says, OMG, aliens playing dodgeball. It's true. They're like weird. They're very similar to the Mars people from Metal Slug, right? Which is weird. That's one of my most hated sound effects in video game history right there, is the sound that the aliens make returning to their UFO.
There's no real way to tell where the aliens are, and if you don't find one, you'll have to play that game again until you do. Once you find them all, you're taken to a match.
It's a cool mode, though. It's this little add-on. I haven't played this version in a long time. This is going to make me want to go revisit Super Dodgeball on the PC Engine. Or, sorry, Neketsu Koko Dodgeball Boo PC Bangai Hen. But yeah, you play a match on the moon, which is not in the... What I did not do in this video, what I would like to do, what I would do if I could do it again, what I would do is I would talk about the Famicom version, because the match order is different in the Famicom version, and I think There's actually an extra match in the U.S. version, but now I can't remember. But instead of Russia last, it's U.S. The U.S. is last. And then you have the Shadow match takes place in the U.S. stage on top of the building with the Statue of Liberty in the background instead of in the Russia stage. But obviously they were going to, for the U.S. release, they were going to make Russia the final bosses, right? You're the American team. You have to assert the patriotic dominance over the evil Russians. So, but man, I love that game. I play that game a lot. There's a lot of times when I'm just like, you know what? I don't have a lot to do. I'm kind of bored. I'm going to take 20 minutes and play through Super Dodgeball. Because I really like Super Dodgeball. A lot of fun. Still love that game. Seafoam Gaming says, I like that the Switch port included in the Double Dragon, Kunio-kun, Brawler, Retro Bundle, all the slowdown is erased. Yeah, you can play the enhanced versions of the games on the Switch, and they get rid of the flight spricker, the sprite flicker, and the slowdown. They take care of that in the enhanced editions. It's really cool. I like that. That collection is great, and the fact that they localized like so many games that had not gotten translations. Like I never thought they would put out translated versions of all of those. I love that Superman here, first of all, not a licensed appearance by Superman, but I love that he's smaller than Kunio. Oh, that's right. I did an outtake one time. This is the only time I've done an outtake at the end of a video. I legitimately could do an outtake like that for probably every single video I've ever made. It's just, sometimes you can't, I drink a lot of soda. I was drinking one the whole time we were here. And if you take a big gulp of soda to sort of, I don't know why there's an ad on this video. What's up with that? There must be a copyright claim for, it's because I use a song over the credits. There's definitely belch outtakes from every video I've ever done that I just never share. But for some reason, I thought that one was funny enough to put it at the end of the video. So, Frank Carpenter says, when did Freshest Cat Possible get introduced? Year 2. I thought it was dope because it wasn't the same type of song every other channel has. Freshest Cat Possible came in when I moved to DC. So that would have been year 4. Although year 3, again, only had like 2 videos. But it was 2014 with the Gradius episode. Gradius episode is when Freshest Cat Possible showed up. Robert James says, sounds like you really use the elements of style by Strunk & White to help you write. It makes sense, the repetition of words in your work. We do, my wife and I do have a copy of Elements of Style by Strunk & White in the house. That is accurate. That is accurate. Genovi says, amazing you're doing this. How many videos have I missed? If you just got here, brother, you missed almost all of them. This is the 7th one. It's going to be the last one. This is the last video of 2011. And we did 6 so far. There were 6. But this is... Put this on your watch later. I'm going to delist it, but it will still be available to... You'll be able to link to it. The links to my Twitter will still work. And it'll be added to the commentary tracks playlist that I have. So, if you want to go back and check out everything so far, you can do that. Also, what's up, Genovi? Glad you came by. Seafoam Gaming says it's pretty incredible. I hope Limited Run gets a PS4 Switch physical version released. It's very worth it. Have they done anything with Arc System Works? I don't know. So this video was a beast. At the time, this was the most ambitious video I had done simply because these games are even only about 3 or 4 hours. I had never done games this long, and I have a stack of DV tapes because, like I said earlier, I was capturing footage directly to mini DV. I have a stack of mini DV tapes somewhere around here, in that closet, actually. There's a closet right over there. It's in that closet. I have a stack of mini DV tapes that is just footage of Resident Evil because the tapes are only like 50 minutes each. And each of these games took me, whatever, like I said, 4 hours or whatever to beat. And there's footage of the tyrant battles in here. I didn't do Chris and Jill because I didn't want to pay for the tapes that I would need to get all that footage. But like most games to this point were 1 game per DV tape, or sometimes even less than that, depending on how short the game was or how quick I could get through it. Like I think Super Dodgeball was 1 tape for both versions of Super Dodgeball. It was for all the game footage I needed. But I used a bunch, like a whole pack of tapes I used to make this episode. So let's talk about the voice. I made a joke at my own expense in the Resident Evil 2 episode. I have no idea what I was thinking doing the voice. And I'm only doing the voice in the live, like the shots of me. But then when it goes back to my narration, I'm talking normally. But I'm not acting like I'm a different character or something. I'm not doing like a horror host, a John Zachary or whatever, a Joe Bob type of thing. I'm just doing the spooky voice when the camera's on me, and then I'm not doing the spooky voice anymore when I'm talking. I don't know why I did that. It's a little cringy, to be perfectly honest. The light is actually a light you've seen in some of the other videos so far. I had a little palm tree light. It's like a little neon palm tree that my wife gave me for Valentine's Day or my birthday one year or something. And it broke when we moved to DC, I think. It broke in the move. The tube broke, and that was the end of that, which sucks. But I loved that lamp, and it was the perfect eerie mood lighting for this video. The green covered my face. But I try showing off some things, like the box of the long box, Resident Evil, and you can't see it because it's so dark. And it's just this little tiny, basically, night light that also is behind. It's sort of right here. So when I hold something up in front of me, there's no light. I wouldn't do that now, obviously. For a long time, if you watched more recent Halloween specials, for a long time I would just shoot day for night, and you can tell it's really obvious because I just blue tint the shot so it looks like day for night. But I also kind of, like, that was kind of why I did it. Like, I thought it was funny and sort of very low-budget horror to just, like, I'm going to do really crappy day for night. And I did that on a lot of videos. But now, like, the most recent couple, with my current camera, I can adjust the light settings on the camera much easier. So I can shoot in low light better, which is why in the Castlevania episode, there's also only 1 light below me, and it's, but it works because the camera is much better at shooting in low light than the camera I had at the time here is. So that's why it looks better. But by the way, shout outs to Longbox Resident Evil. It's like really hard, but I actually still, just even director's cut, right? Like, shout outs to original Resident Evil. I feel like this game, this version, has supplanted 1996 Resident Evil. And that's kind of bogus. Like, OG Resident Evil is still good. And you should, if you've never played this version or the director's cut version, not the DualShock director's cut because it's got a really bad soundtrack, but director's cut or OG long box Resident Evil, like, if you've never played them, play that version of Resident Evil. It's actually really good. And as I say later in this video, the DS port, Deadly Silence, is maybe the best version of OG Resident Evil. It's really, don't get me wrong. I would argue that Resident Evil HD or whatever remake is the better is the better version.
And just better performed.
But I still like it a lot. This was also part of the first on the stick 31 nights of horror that we do. That we have managed to do now for 11 years running, we have done daily or near daily horror stuff. And it used to be, when we still had a website, it used to be that we would do written articles most days. So I did a video, but then we also did a bunch of written stuff. I wrote articles, Kurt and Mike and Eric wrote articles, and then a bunch of our friends that we knew from message boards and Twitter and stuff, we would just be like, hey, do you want to write something? We can't pay you. So if you're like a professional writer, probably don't write something for us. But like, if you just want to write something for fun, or no one's like, you know, and people would write for us, and we would have a whole, and this first one, the first year we did it as a historical thing. It was a history of horror games. And so the first one, I think I wrote about the C64 Alien video game, which is actually really good. It randomizes who's the android, who gets impregnated by the alien, and all that stuff, and you have to sort of survive and figure out, like, who's the android. It's not always going to be Ash, and, you know, who got by the alien, and it's going to get the chest burster. It's not always going to be Kane. And it's actually like kind of ahead of its time as a horror game. And then Kurt wrote about The Lurking Horror, which is an old school text adventure. That's like a Lovecraftian thing and all this stuff. And this was towards the end of the month, which is part of the reason why I chose Resident Evil, was so I could hit it at the end of the month and give myself time to work on it.
So you've come.
And I also really liked being able to put these scenes side by side. I you know, probably now if I did this, I might do an extra video where I would put all the cutscenes, you know, match them up and do like a really long video side by side. But that's, you know, that at this time, that was a huge amount of work, and there was nowhere to put it, because this was the first video that I posted to YouTube that was over 15 minutes or whatever, because it was right when they gave my account permission to add longer videos. This was the first one that I put up, because Blip had a longer time. Blip, you could put longer videos on, and this one wasn't on YouTube for a while because I couldn't put a video this long up, and I didn't want to split it in two parts. Dirty hands! You son of a bitch! The dialogue is still slightly overwrought in the remake, but it's overwrought in a way that feels a little more natural. That font was the font we used for all the banner images for our articles on the website. So I was trying to keep a through line between what you were reading on the site of our 31-day history of horror games, and then the video would be of a piece with that. So I used this font that I don't even remember what it's called, Black Nightmare or something, you know, like that. So I used this font. It's the only time I think I ever used this font, because eventually I realized I wanted the videos to be of a piece with each other and not necessarily worry about it matching up with what was on the site. So Genovi says, I love mini DV, still have my system in tapes, much bigger pain digitizing video. Back with these videos, what was your capture process? So I touched on this earlier, but it was, I had a mini DV cam that had, it could also act as a VCR basically. So on the side it had inputs for composite and stereo RCA, you know, your yellow, red, white. So I made, I went to Radio Shack, and so actually early videos, like the very first couple, I literally played the games on the viewfinder of my camera, which looking back on it is utterly bananas. I don't know how I did that. If you go watch the shoot 'em up training music videos that I did in 2007 or 2008 or whenever that was, all of those, the games were played. So I'm playing these like shoot 'em ups that are actually like pretty demanding, and I'm playing them on this little flip out viewfinder for my camera. But eventually I smartened up, and I went to Radio Shack, and I got just 3 Y splitters, 1 male to 2 female Y splitters, and I plugged them into my camera, and then, or I plugged them into, like, the RCA out of this game console would go into them, and one set, or it was female to female, so be three, the composite video coming out of whatever game system it was, and then splitting off one to the TV and one to the camera. And that's how I captured footage. And then I would dump the DV tapes in real time. That was the other thing. You had to do it in real time, which is, I'm sure Genovi knows, but anybody who doesn't know, you have to, if you're doing mini DV, you have to do it in real time. The transfer has to be in real time too. So I would plug the FireWire into my old tower computer, and plug the FireWire in and dump the footage, and it would dump it in real time. So when I did 4 hours of each of these games, I had to dump the footage, and I think if I remember correctly, I was dumping it every night after I would play, and then I would dump everything that I played that night, rather than waiting till the end and trying to dump 8 hours of gameplay footage, all at once. So I made a joke on stream recently that they're going to reveal that George Trevor designed the tall ladies mansion in Resident Evil 8. That's going to be the twist. That's going to be how they tie in the lore. George Trevor, architect of the mansion and village. That's my theory. That's my theory. Robert James says, I enjoy... Snarkcast says, bedtime for me. Congrats on 10 years. You're probably gone by now, but thanks for stopping by, man. I appreciate it. Robert James says, I enjoyed the remake of RE. Crimson Head's really changed the way I played, and the save room music for all REs is great. The save room music is so good. It's always good. But yeah, the Crimson Heads were a game changer for sure. Really great. T-Bow Baggins says RE is such a great game. Love the GameCube version. Yep, same. Robert James says, what is one thing you love about making videos and one thing you absolutely hate about making videos? I love the creative freedom, the creative output, right? Like, that's a big part of why I do it, honestly. I haven't done live theater in 8 years. I haven't done live theater. So having an outlet for my creative stuff, my sort of filmmaking, my theater degree, my film school education before I switched my major to theater. So I love that it gives me an outlet. The thing that I hate is just that there's always technical issues, and I think that probably feels really obvious or really, like, whatever, basic, but technical issues suck. And when you capture a bunch of footage and then it turns out it's bad, or the audio doesn't sync, it comes out of sync because old video game consoles actually have weird, like, refresh rates that are not exactly 60 frames per second. Or sometimes they are exactly 60 frames per second, but the editing program won't recognize it if it's exactly that, so you convert it to a format the video editing program can read. The audio comes unsynced, and you have to manually resync it, and it's worse the later in the footage you get. So it's like end game footage. I'm like, you're messing with resyncing stuff, and that sucks. Just dropped my phone again. And that's a bummer. You don't like to do that. So, technical issues are the thing that I definitely hate. So, T-Bow Baggins says they should have had an option in the remakes for OG voice acting. That would have been funny. I think that would have been hard to do and get the rights and everything, but that would be funny. Seafoam Gaming says, oh my god, Duke Nukem is in this game. I assume you're referring to Wesker's remake look. Rex Warden says, I once connected my SNES to a handheld TV and played Doom on it. It was bad as you can imagine. I can imagine. I mean, like I said, I was capturing footage on it's probably very similar to capturing footage on a viewfinder of a mini DV cam. T.O. Baggins says, weird question. Where exactly in the Spencer Mansion were people expected to take a dump? There's no toilets. Same thing in the police station, right? In Resident Evil 2. That was one of the things in the remake. It's like, oh, there's a bathroom in here now. There is a bathroom in the I guess they were supposed to go to the garden house, I guess, right? Because in the gardener's house, whatever it is, there is a bathroom, because you have to pull the plug out of the drain to get a key and stuff. So I guess they had to go out there if they wanted to use a toilet. Genovi says, it was such a pain. We shot some short films back 15, 20 years ago. I'm trying to talk my bro into finding those old tapes for a fresh transfer and edit. Man, I have a documentary that I worked on for like 2 years. And the hard drive that a lot of that footage was on, and also the completed project file was on, got corrupted. So there's always a part of me that's like, I should retransfer all that footage and re-edit that documentary, but I just don't want to do it. And there are DVD copies out there that people have, and so I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's fine. I actually need to get myself a rip of the DVD so that I don't like completely lose that work that I did, but it's a lot, man. It's a lot. So, but yeah, I'm glad that people hung out. Looks like there were 30 some people at one point, 24 people now. So that was the first year. That was the first year of Same Name Different Game, and wow, that was 10 years ago. Man, crazy, right? And the only thing I can really say is whether you've been here since last month or whether you've been here since then, if you watched, I'm not even picking it up this time. I should, because the chat's on there. Whether you maybe you watched on Blip itself back in the day. Maybe you watched on, Screw Attack. I used to post videos to. R.I.P. Screw Attack. A lot of people. There were people who really liked Screw Attack or RetroWare TV. Those guys used to be really nice about. I was the featured video user submission of the week many times. Back in the day on RetroWare TV. So however you came here, however you found the show, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate that a lot of people actually did come out here and hang out tonight and talk to me while I did this and ask questions and stuff. And that's super cool. Appreciate it. And look for a brand new 10th anniversary episode about Life Force. We're going back to the Life Force well. That'll be up before the end of the weekend. It'll be up very soon for Patreon people and channel members, and it'll be up before the end of the weekend for everybody. So, again, the only thing I can say is I really appreciate your support, and thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. And I'm just going to give one more glance at the chat here. Frank says, since RE3 Make has no subtitle, is it a no-go? Yeah, probably. Maybe not necessarily, but probably. Also, Resident Evil 2 is such a huge project that maybe I'll eventually do RE3, but it's not going to be soon. Camarisco says this was awesome. CFM Gaming, this is a good time. CFM Gaming says, eagerly been catching up on the past 2 years lately myself, as I had a lot of losses and personal stuff in 2019, 2020. I'm really sorry to hear that, but I hope everything is cool now. Hope it's good. Tebow Baggins says, time sure flies by as we age, huh? It really does. The thing that hit me really hard the other day, I tweeted about this. There was a thing in my time hop that came up where I was talking about the PS4 unveiling, where they showed it off the first time, basically, was 8 years ago this week. And I was like, that seems like it could not possibly be that long ago, but it definitely was. A couple people mentioning Retroware TVs. Klaus Kilski says what happened. I think John was going to business school. I think he was getting an MBA, if memory serves. He got a job somewhere else, so I think he and Lance are not in the same area anymore. And also, I mean, a big part of it is honestly now, this is part of the big mistake that I made at the beginning, which was doing Blip instead of YouTube. Like if you look at the dates on a lot of these videos that we're talking about, like we'll go back to the first video. I'll put that back up on the screen. Okay. April 7th. Okay. April 7th, 2011. So this was almost 2 months after it premiered on Blip and on the website. I waited 2 months to post it here. Because at the time, sites like Retroware were like people were curating content in that way. That was how you got stuff. That was how you kind of separated the wheat from the chaff, because there was a lot of bad stuff on YouTube back in the day. The level of polish in modern YouTube content, and I'm probably not telling any of you anything you don't already know, but except maybe if that 13-year-old is still watching, this is probably stuff you don't know. But 10 years ago, there was a lot of garbage on YouTube, and a lot of stuff that had no production value whatsoever. So sites like Retroware would separate the wheat from the chaff for you by, you'd put up a user submission and they would pick the best user submissions and feature them on the front page, and or feature them in the, like when they had the user submission of the week, which like my Batman video for sure was one of those, because I saved the graphic that they made. It would be in their like main top scroll of like, this is the user video we thought was best this week, and they were curating that stuff. None of those views carry over to this. Like the Metal Gear video, first Metal Gear video I did in 2012, that one had, on Blip, it had like thousands of views because Retroware featured it, and then I think Screw Attack featured it as well. But it was the embed of the Blip version, because you could do 720p on Blip when you could still only do like whatever it is, 320 on YouTube. That was part of it too. That's the big mistake though. And when that no longer became such a thing, the YouTube algorithm got better in some ways. It actually did get better in some ways. It got worse in a lot of other ways. You didn't need someone to curate that stuff for you anymore. You just sort of organically find stuff. And so the function of Retroware sort of was no longer necessary, and no one wants to keep their videos exclusive to a site that isn't YouTube. You're not going to shelter something from YouTube and put it somewhere else in a silo, because there are so many people on YouTube that the organic views you get, you win the lottery when you hit the algorithm right. Like I did with the Legendary Wings video last year. I still don't know why so many people watch Legendary Wings video. I have videos that I think are much better, that candidly I worked much harder on, that I think are much more interesting, that don't have a fraction of the views that the Legendary Wings video has, because it caught the algorithm at the right time and it got like 8,000 views in a week. And it used to be that sites like Retroware TV and Screw Attack and whatever could help you do that, and now they can't. And I think now Screenwave actually owns Retroware, and they've talked some. I remember hearing them at a panel at MagFest like 2 years ago. My last MagFest I went to, I think it was. They were talking about, we're gonna revitalize Retroware. We're gonna make it into something that's a place where people want to hang out, talk about classic games and forums and blah blah blah. And it seems like they've redesigned the site a little bit, but it seems like they haven't actually done any of that stuff. So I don't know, maybe we'll see, maybe. But that's, I think, in my estimation, what happened. You have to ask John and Lance, really. And I have a good rapport with them reasonably at this point. I don't talk to them super, super frequently, but like, that's not the kind of question that I feel like asking John or Lance. But I mean, they're both on Twitter, I believe. So ask John and Lance. They might be able to give you more insight than I can, but I think that's probably a lot of it. But people thanking me for doing this, and you're all welcome. I'm really glad that you, like I said, that you all showed up. And let's see. Seafoam Gaming mentioned 3DS came out, and that was 10 years ago this Saturday. It's bananas, right? Totally bananas. Robert James says, you, Metal Jesus, and a few others on RetroWare TV is where I found you guys. So there you go. We got somebody in the chat who did actually find this show on RetroWare TV, which is awesome. Rex Warden says, I got about 15 times more views on BitChute than I did on YouTube. And that's another one. You know what? Actually, when VidMe, y'all remember VidMe? That was around for like a cup of coffee. Posted all my videos to VidMe, and some of them, they featured some of them because they were just hungry for good content. And so they featured like the Super NES, 5 reasons to own a Super NES. And again, like, I don't count at this point, if the site doesn't exist anymore, I'm not going to like try to do the math on the views and be like, well, this video actually has such and such, like those views on the Metal Gear video that were from Blip, and the vidme.com views, or it was vid.me actually, on 5 reasons to own a Super NES. Like they're gone. They're valueless at this point. But that video they featured it on the front page of the entire site, and it ended up getting thousands of views. By far the most seen episode, even now, the most seen episode of 5 Reasons, if I was to count those views. But again, I don't compartmentalize that because the site doesn't exist anymore, so oh well. But it had a ton of views on that site, and BitChute is like, I thought about it, and it's just like, at this point I'm feeling like it's, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, fool me 3 times. Like, I'm not, unless YouTube does something, or if there is a competitor that really shows that there is something to it, where there is a large enough user base that people will put eyeballs on my stuff, I'm just not going to the trouble to upload to other platforms. Like, I know a lot of people do upload to BitChute. Like, I think Bob from RetroRGB uploads stuff to BitChute and stuff. And like, I'm just not doing it again. Like, because then I feel like it's just another, like, at this point, to upload however many 150 or whatever videos between all the shows, is a big pain in the ass. And then, if the site blinks out of existence in 3 weeks, it's like, what was the point of that? And that's what happened with VidMe. And I just don't want to go through that again. So, but yeah. Yeah, Seafoam Gaming says my Pac-Man PS4 gameplay vid has nearly 50k views, and I don't know why. None of my retrospectives broke 1k. Well, if it's a gameplay video, I can tell you why. It's because people want to know what the gameplay looks like, and so they just search they search for Pac-Man whatever gameplay, and your video comes up in the search, and then they watch it because they want to see what the gameplay looks like. That stuff for sure. But I mean, some of that stuff is really weird. Like, we've been doing over on the live stream channel, youtube.com/onthesticktv. We've brought the Action Cast back, which is a podcast some friends and I used to do a long time ago, and we brought it back last year. One of the first episodes we did when we came back was on Time Cop, and for some reason it's got a ton of views. I mean, a ton is relative, but it's got over 1,000 views, and every other episode of the Action Cast we've done since then tops out at, like, I don't know, 200. It's really weird. I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Seafoam Gaming mentions that VidMe didn't curtail their content. Yeah, they didn't. There was a problem at one point that I pointed out on Twitter that they have ended up kind of fixing, but like, there was a Pizzagate truther who had sort of like nailed their algorithm, and the whole front page one day, I remember I went to do like the daily upload or whatever, the daily, like switch it from private to public or whatever I was doing at the time. I went to the site, and literally the whole top videos strip at the top was this one crazy far right conspiracy theorist dude it was Pizzagate videos all the way across. And I was like, guys, this is how you will get a reputation. Maybe don't do that. you know. So that site was rough. And then, like I said, it was gone like that because they realized, oh yeah, having hosting for gigs and gigs and gigs and gigs and gigs worth of videos is not cheap. And then they just kind of evaporated. But yeah. So the Thumb Brothers just popped in to say congrats on your journey. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you popping in. So, Sadzo says hi from New Zealand. Love your vids. Thanks, man. Thanks. So